Hey team, I'm just waiting for Soph to jump on and then we are going to get started with our Facebook Live Q&A today. We're going to be talking about a whole heap of different things from calories, celery juice, bone broth, different types of bones, all that sort of jazz. As usual, the materials and content and everything we say is not recommended as a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis or treatment. So please consult your doctor, healthcare practitioner, naturopath, nutritionist, all of those people. If you need to, we're just having a riff about things that we like and don't like, and so that's what we're going to be doing today. I will just wait for Soph to jump on and then we will get started. Let me see if I can add her in. Okay. Whoops, what have I done here? Okay, there's Soph. Add her in. Get rid of that stuff. Yeah.
Hey guys.
How are you?
Good. How are we all? It's been a while.
Yeah, I've already told everyone not to sue us and consult their healthcare practitioner and don't be a dickhead, basically.
Well, you can sue us, but we'll probably flee the country.
Well, you can sue us and you can take all $3 that we have collectively between.
We will probably be leaving to Mexico or somewhere. But yes.
How do you reckon Tom's skin's going to go in Mexico?
He'll get used to it. He'll be wearing linen shirts.
Yeah.
And those fedora hats. Linen shirts and fedora hats. That'll be Tom.
Oh, absolutely. But how will he show off the six-pack if he's in a linen shirt?
Okay, well, that's it. He'll have to do the unbuttoned linen shirt kind of situation.
Unbuttoned down to the
oil. He'll have to grease up with some coconut oil to stay hydrated, moisturised. Oh, God. We have so many questions today. Well, I think for the next month.
We do. So I've written down about a third of the ones that we've gotten through because we have so much to get through, and I don't think a 3-hour Facebook Live is really appropriate.
No.
So we'll just start cracking through stuff. What we don't get through, we'll just start working through over the next few weeks, and we'll just stop asking people questions because they're just going all right, let's
I will not tell you what colour undies I wear. They're just so inappropriate, some of these questions.
Stop asking, Tom.
Oh, God. All right.
Okay, first question. What food sensitivity test would you recommend?
What food sensitivity tests? I think you've got to work out what you're testing for. I really like the naturopath testing. I think you should always go through a good quality pathology lab. And I think you should always go through someone who actually knows how to read tests. I quite often know of people who have decided they're going to kind of do a bit more testing on their health, and they've gone to get some different stool testings and things done. And I even had that with my journey, and they were unable to kind of read the test for me properly to actually gauge what was actually going on inside my body, because some of the test results come back 20, 30 pages long, so you really got to make sure that you're going to the right person for your test results. So I think that's always important, someone who's actually had practice with the right kind of testing and is related to a good quality pathology lab. So I really like naturopath. I think they're really good. I think with food sensitivity testing, the ones that I've done are through naturopath, and there's different types, what you're testing for, whether you're testing for usually generalized food, and then they'll go off into talking about testing for spices, testing for different kind of ingredients, different ways and different things like that. So it's kind of more so maybe what's relevant to what you are feeling that you're reacting to, or you can just kind of get it all done. It's just a bit more expensive. I know now they've got a lot of different pinner tests and prick testing where you can just kind of do it at home, prick and send it back off. I have never really looked into a lot of those as to how kind of good they are for specific testing. But I do know a lot of people that have used them and said they're really great. So I definitely think my thoughts with that are to do testing with someone who can actually help you interpret the results. Use pathology labs that are actually recognised and well known and and do this kind of stuff all the time. And make sure that you're not spending a fortune on something that's going to give you kind of half-ass results. And I think it's quite hard as well when you can do a lot of the testing at home yourself. I know some things can be quite simple, but some things, you know, like with my Fit Genes, like with my genetics testing, you have to do swabs and different things like that. And if you accidentally touch the swab where it was on your saliva, you stuff up the whole thing, and then you send it back and you get wrong results because you haven't done it how you're meant to do it because the ball's in your court. So I think, I don't know, it's one of those things where I think you got to, if you're going to pay $200 to just do it online yourself or $280 to go see a practitioner to do it, I'd just spend the extra $80, you know, but... Yeah, what were you going to say, Sham?
I was just going to say as well, I think it's important to work with a good practitioner to not only interpret those results, but then work out what the plan is moving forward. Because a lot of the time, the pathology lab will send you these pages of you know, results, but what that means for you individually, it's completely different for every single person. And then I also think what's important is all of these food sensitivity tests have their limitations. Like none of them are perfect or spot on.
They're like the pill.
Totally.
99%.
99%. But actually, on a tangent, I was actually reading something about the pill and contraception the other day, and they're actually talking about, you know, they say the pill's 99% effective, but what they actually have said now is that it's actually only about 50% effective because people... The way people take it and the erratic way in which people take it is so non-consistent that it actually can't be 99. If you took it every single day at the same time and you weren't drinking alcohol and you weren't taking any other medications and, you know, you weren't doing anything else, you didn't have a disrupted gut microbiome that was, you know, stopping the absorption of it and all that sort of stuff. 99% effective. But for most people who, you know, take it every second day or, you know, not taking it at the same time every single day, plus they're boozing, plus they're doing all of this stuff, it's probably not 99% effective. It's probably around 65% effective or something like that. Anyway, that was a tangent. What I was also going to say
an
is...
interesting one, though.
They all have their limitations. So I think it's really important, again, to work with a practitioner to work within the limitations of what that testing shows. And be aware that if you have a really compromised gut, you're going to show up sensitivities to stuff that you're probably not allergic to or intolerant to. Like when I had mine done, the list of my food sensitivities came back with like 50 things. And it was eggs, almonds, bananas, cranberries, like pretty much just anything that I'd been exposed to in the last month, I was coming up showing a reaction to because my gut was so compromised. I had such a leaky gut that my body was just mounting immune responses against everything that I was eating. So it wasn't a true
representation.
That I was having. But had I not been working with a practitioner who said to me, you know, you just have a leaky gut, you're not intolerant to all of those things, we need to heal your gut, we need to work on that, and then we can work on, you know, reintroducing certain things and actually seeing where the true intolerances are. And I think for a lot of people, if the question is, am I allergic to dairy or gluten, save yourself $200. Just cut out dairy for a couple of weeks and see how you feel. And then reintroduce it and have, you know, a decent amount of dairy every single day for a week. And if you feel shit, if your skin goes to shit, if you get really mucousy, if you get a cough, any of that sort of stuff, you're probably not doing that great with dairy. So, you know, there's your answer. I think, you know, sometimes people just need to see it on a piece of paper, but it doesn't need to be that hard.
Yeah, I'm the same. Like when I first did my sensitivity testing, I came back with all sorts of things and there was just way too much going on that it almost just interferes with the results, and your body is actually reacting to all those things. So that's why it's telling you that. And then now when I get it done, it's you know, it's not anything that I don't already know. And I think the same. I think there's stages. Like if I feel like I'm doing all of the things and something's still not right, I would probably go do it. But I've also cut out a million things between, you know, then and now. Whereas if you're just kind of getting started, then I think it's important to just trial things as well yourself. And some things you may not feel that you react to, like, you know, not necessarily just my body show up and say, don't eat gluten. But I know that I feel better when I'm not eating that. So I think that's also a bit, you know, sometimes you can let a piece of paper determine what you do rather than how you actually feel.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think people get really caught up in the whole well, I'm not gluten intolerant or I'm not
Yeah.
celiac, so I'm fine with it. Well, okay, there's a lot of science now that shows that really none of us do that well with wheat as wheat is these days. And
Yeah.
is it the most nutrient dense food that you can be eating? Probably
Mm.
not. But anyway,
Yeah.
probably on that whole same
Um,
vein, we do have another question. Oh, do you want to say something
Yeah, I
else?
was just gonna. Yeah, this lady who was diagnosed celiac here in Australia just went to Europe, and she ate gluten the whole time she was over there and didn't have one hiccup, no problems. Didn't go to hospital. Whereas here, she gets like hospitalized. And it was just a really interesting article because they don't use Roundup there; they're legally not allowed to, and Roundup's like sprayed everywhere here, all over our sidewalks, all over parks, all over our food, everything. It's like a chemical pesticide, herbicide. And it's really, really bad. And it was just an interesting thing, you know, like wheat isn't how it used to be. And it's just an interesting read about how there she really digested the quality of their food a lot easier than here. So I thought that was interesting as well.
I actually found that too in Italy and France, and I think it's also just the species of wheat that they're using. It's probably not quite
Yeah.
as commercially produced as it
Yeah,
is
it's
here.
not GMO and yeah.
Yeah, but I found over there I would have a croissant every single day,
Yeah,
and I
no
was fine
problems.
with
Yeah.
it. Whereas
And you're
usually,
probably a
I'm
lot less stressed on holidays, but I just
100%.
think it's, you know, I think quality of food's really important as well,
Yeah,
not just to mention cutting out foods.
yeah,
Yeah.
100%. So kind of on that same vein as actually what you were just talking about. We had another question that was, how do I limit so many foods when so many foods bloat me?
How do I limit so many? Oh, like how
So
do I remove all
yeah, so I
those
think
foods
this
when?
question really is more around they're obviously reacting to a lot of things, but they feel like they're cutting out everything. What to do? What do you do?
Mm. So when my gut was really bad, I think I got down to about 14 different foods, and that's all that I was eating like every single day. And I actually think it was probably the best thing that I did for my gut was keeping it really bloody simple because food is quite complicated these days, and some things that we eat, you know, our bodies can't handle, you know, 30 different ingredients in one recipe trying to break all those things down when they're not a happy, healthy gut themselves. Like they're trying to do enough work as it is, let alone trying to work through breaking down your lunch, which has, you know, rice, pasta, cheese, all the different things in there that are quite complicated for it to digest because they're not always easy foods to break down as well. You know, your proteins and things are harder for your body to break down. So I think it's about if that's how you're feeling with the food, I think it's about removing those foods, whether you want to or not. I think if your body's telling you that, you should remove those foods for the time being while you heal and seal your gut lining and look after your body and what's actually going on. Because there's usually a deeper underlying thing rather than just IBS if your body's reacting and bloating to things. And, you know, sometimes it's just a lot of stress. Sometimes you stress the shit house and your whole body's just responding and reacting to everything. So, I think it's really important to see what else is going on. But for the time being, it's actually worse to just keep letting your body flare up every time you eat those foods. Like you're actually just putting more stress on it. So I think that you should definitely look into what else is going on. Usually there's some sort of leaky gut problem if you're going to be bloating all the time and with all the foods. So look at healing and sealing your gut lining. Bone broth, you know, bone broth is like liquid gold to Shan and I, and look at things that are really anti-inflammatory foods. You know, aloe vera is really great for healing and sealing that gut lining and just adding that protective barrier. Just look into foods, herbs, supplements, and things that are going to actually help to reduce that bloating. You know, Gut Right's a good product by ATP, or slippery elm, which is a bark root that is ground down into a powder that helps with inflammation. So look into things that are a little bit different that are actually going to heal and seal that gut lining rather than cutting foods out, hoping the bloating just goes away and then reintroducing them. Because if something's going on like that, there's definitely an underlying reason as to why. And I think also look at the kinds of things that your body is reacting to as well. Like my body used to react to nuts and things a lot, and now I can tolerate them a lot more because my gut's gotten stronger and healthier. So I think there is times and places for certain things. And for a while, I just ate like small portions of good quality protein and veggies for a long time because it's easy for our bodies to digest. It's not a complicated meal. It's real food. It's, you know, good quality fats, proteins, carbs right there and then that it can easily access and break down and digest. And so I think sometimes back to basics is really important.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I think if that's the situation too, where you feel like you're just reacting to everything, test, don't guess.
Mm.
Like, there's
Yeah.
work with a practitioner to actually work out what's going on, work out if you've got some sort of small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. Do you have a parasite? Is it leaky gut? Like, work out what's actually going on in there, because I think cut out all the major culprits. Sure, cut out processed food, cut out refined sugar, cut out gluten and dairy if you want to. But if you still find within that, whole real food realm, you're reacting to carrots and capsicum and random things like that, you need to actually
Mm.
deal with the root cause, exactly like what you're saying. But you can't just cut out everything, because probably what's happening is you've got this compromised gut. You're not absorbing the nutrients from your food anyway. So removing more and more and more foods is just going to make you more and more nutrient deficient. So you
Mm.
need to work with somebody to actually work out what the hell is going on. And exactly what you
Yeah.
said, you need to heal and seal that gut lining so that then you can start reintroducing this stuff and get more
Mm.
nutrition back into your life.
Yeah. You always need a baseline to start from. You just can't guess this sort of stuff, especially if
Yeah,
it's getting to that kind of level where you're having lots of problems.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
All right.
Okay, do you recommend any supplements?
So I probably would only recommend collagen. Shan and I talk a lot about collagen powder. It's basically ground down beef bones, chicken bones, lamb bones, whatever you want to call it. We are big believers in getting healthy from healthy animals, so we tend to get grass-fed organic collagen. Collagen's basically the same as gelatin, but it's just kind of derived that little bit further, so it dissolves in hot and cold liquids. It doesn't gel in cold liquids, and it's basically just white powder, flavorless, colorless, and you can add it into anything: teas, coffees, meatballs, bliss balls, whatever you're making, soups, anything. And basically, it's really good at healing, sealing your gut lining, repairing your gut lining, really good for inflammation, for joints. It's basically like the elasticity within our skin. So it's kind of like a Botox, good for hair growth, nail growth. So I think collagen's a really great supplement, because we don't eat nose to tail when it comes to meat anymore. And because we don't, we start to lack in that natural collagen that our body should be producing. And as we age, we naturally start to make less collagen as well. So that's why we start to get wrinkly and, saggy boobs. So so basically, I think collagen's a really great one. Other supplements, I think supplements are great if you are taking them for a reason. I think there's nothing worse than just buying, I think media and health and everything on the market kind of thing with gut health and everything is just totally gone overboard. And now you can just buy a supplement for everything.
Yeah.
And I think you can spend a lot of your money when you could be spending it on just better quality food. And
Yeah.
a lot of them just won't even be doing anything, or a lot of them you might even just be creating toxicity because you don't need that, because you already get so much of it through your food. So I think we can get a little bit stupid sometimes with supplements. I take supplements for my liver because I'm working on my liver at the moment. I take supplements for zinc because I'm working on my zinc levels at the moment, vitamin D, and I take collagen. And that's what I take at present because that's what my body needs. And then other kind of supplements that I take are usually herbal things like chase tree herbs for my period and stuff like that. So I wouldn't necessarily call them all supplements. I think sometimes supplements puts it in that realm of like pre-workouts.
Yeah.
But I think herbal tonics and things like that I think are great, but you need to be using them for the right reasons, and not just because you think that if you read somewhere that you take some zinc you're going to lose 5 kilos and your hormone problems will just go away and that'll just be the end of it. Because I think you've also got to look at quality as well when it comes to supplements and using brands that you trust.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the time, when we're talking about supplements, they're synthetically created. They're synthetically created in
Yes.
a lab, so the bioavailability of them isn't as great as if we were getting that zinc, for example, from a food.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, it doesn't come packaged with all of the other cofactors that we need to absorb it properly. So ideally, I think getting, these supplements or these nutrients from food is first and foremost great.
Yeah.
But I totally agree. Supplements can be super useful if you need them, but
Mm.
get tested. Like if you're not zinc deficient, then there's no point
No,
taking
no,
zinc.
don't spend
Um,
$60 on zinc tablets every month.
no, yeah. So I think again, test, don't guess. Work out what's actually going on, and if you need it, then sure, supplement can be great. I think I totally agree with you. Collagen for me would be the number one. I think certain strains of probiotics can be really useful therapeutically for certain things. So, there's certain strains of probiotics that are great for eczema and dermatitis. There's certain strains that are really great for constipation, all that sort of stuff therapeutically, as opposed to I just take it every day because. And magnesium is something that I don't take orally because it's actually very, very poorly absorbed orally, but great for constipation. But I use it topically. So I think magnesium is something that our soils are generally very deficient in these days. So our food sources tend not to be quite as high in magnesium as what they used to be. So I use like a magnesium spray or Epsom salts or magnesium salts or something like that in a bath because magnesium's absorbed really, really well through our skin. So I think magnesium can be super useful if you're someone who gets really sore, tight muscles, if you have trouble sleeping. Magnesium is one of the things that all of our cells needs all the time. So
yeah. And on that note, I think, another thing that I take a lot of is a greens powder, because I think, if you get a good quality greens powder, it does really help to detoxify your body, helps your liver. So I'm a big believer in taking a good quality greens powder because, none of us ever get as many greens in as we should each day. And so there's no harm in taking something that's natural and that's just going to help your body detoxify a little bit more and just kind of ramp up your greens intake. So mine just is has aloe vera in it because I love taking aloe vera for my gut. It's got like spirulina, chlorella, wheatgrass, and then that's kind of it. Really tastes terrible, but you don't do it for the taste.
do you have a brand
And if it tastes terrible, it's a good. If it tastes terrible, I feel like that's a good sign. I like the Good Mix. Is it
Pond water?
Yeah. What is the thing? It'd be called Good Mix. Like the brand would be called Good Mix. Pond water.
So. Pond water.
But it tastes like pond water. They're not lying to you. But I think quite often if you get greens powders, they've got like lemon natural flavoring and lime natural flavoring and all. It's it's like 5 grams teaspoon. Yeah.
And then, there's stevia in there, and there's also something like I don't need this to taste sweet. I just need it to be as inconspicuous as possible, so I can just down it.
Yeah, so just take, it's like a teaspoon, throw it in like the tiniest bit of water, knock it back, and that's the end of it. It's not a bloody pina colada where you're going to add in ice and squeeze a lime juice and bloody make a mojito out of it. Just knock it back and get on with your day. Although you could.
Maybe there's a call for that.
Vodka, 9 a.m., Monday morning meeting, vodka and greens powder. You'll feel on top of the world.
What are your thoughts on celery juice?
I've been asked this question so many times. I feel like celery sales have gone up like 3,000% since this has come out by the medical medium. And I definitely think that whoever started like a cold pressed celery juice company has just begun at the right time. They'd be killing it. They'd be doing really well for themselves. So I quite like his work. I think some things he challenges things a lot and he doesn't necessarily always have the evidence to back it up, which can be quite controversial for a lot of people. But you know what? I've seen a lot of things lately where people like bone broth. Where's the science behind bone broth working? Blah, blah, blah. I don't know why people think it's this special elixir. Well, I think we've gotten to the point where it's like McDonald's. Do people do studies on McDonald's being good for you and McDonald's causing obesity and stuff? No, because no one's going to fund that because they don't want a lawsuit with McDonald's. So I think it's about people don't have the kind of money to spend on doing studies all the time, especially people in health. They're not making money like franchises like McDonald's are making to just go throw $100,000. Yeah. $100,000 on a study to prove whether celery juice is good for you. Same with bone broth. I think bloody hell, have these people who have an issue with bone broth, have they watched any bloody olden day shows where I feel like all they drink is broth 24/7 because that's what makes them feel good and that's what their diets were kind of based upon, and they didn't have bloody Campbell's shitty stocks cubes around. I think we've lost touch with real food. I think we need to eat more real food. I think a lot of the stuff that he does in the medical medium is going back to real food, and I think sometimes people are against that idea and that complex because they just can be, because I think people like to challenge and question health quite a lot because I know there is a lot. Yeah.
But I think a lot of the time people get their back up about stuff that's real food based because it makes them feel bad about what they're currently doing. You know, it makes them feel bad about the fact that they're eating a lot of refined and processed foods or a lot of convenience foods or something like that. And, you know, the fact that you're saying, you know, you just eat fresh fruit and veggies and meat, that makes people feel like they're doing something.
I agree.
And it's easier to actually put shit on you than change what they're doing.
Yeah, anyway, and I think, I agree. And look, I actually think it is really hard for people these days. You know, there's so much health info out there. It's actually quite hard to navigate what works and what doesn't work. But I think going back to basics will never be a bad thing. Eating real food will never be a bad thing. And I think what every single diet has in common is eating real food. And that's why we tend to feel good when we go on a diet, because just about every diet recommends cutting down processed food and eating more real food. And I think that'll never go astray. And I think something like the celery juice craze, I think it's very much one of those things where you've got to try it for yourself. I know people who've been doing it and they've been drinking a cup or two of pure celery juice every morning, cold press that they make at home. And they've been doing it for 6 months now, and they're not having eczema problems that they were. They're not having psoriasis issues that they were. But then I also think when you start to maybe start your day on that and you change something like that and eating more greens, does you hold a bit more to eating healthier and to making better choices? Because if so, that's also going to contribute to, you know, not having eczema flare-ups and not having psoriasis flare-ups or having better gut health. And I think basically his idea behind it is it's really high in minerals. It is a pretty great superfood. It is really rehydrating. It's meant to have really good soil-based bacteria that's really good for our gut and our gut microbiome. I think I'm a big believer in not knocking it until you try it, because I feel like a lot of my gut health journey was spent on me just going out and trialing things on my body, whether there was research about it or not, because I needed to get better and I was doing what I needed to do to get better. And I didn't care if they'd written a research study on whether that was good, bone broth was good for them. It feels good for me. And I've noticed a difference. So I'm a big believer in trying it, and don't knock it until you try it. And I'm also a big believer in just reading into more about that sort of stuff, as evidence will come out over time as to whether celery juice is the bee's knees or not. But I also think don't let perfect get in the way of good. And Chen and I always say that, because if your main thing is having celery juice first thing in the morning, but you're not eating vegetables throughout your day, I think there's probably other priorities that should be made before incorporating celery juice. I think that's probably where I stand on that. But if you're right into your health craze, you're always working on getting better and you're eating as clean as you possibly can be, and you feel like it's not all working for you as well as it should be, go for it. Try the bloody celery juice each morning. I think you'll always feel good when you have green juices. I feel like it's a lot of good nutrients. You're not adding lots of sugar into your diet by having juices. Usually with cold pressed juices, if you're adding lots of sugar, you just, you know, natural sugars, you're just drinking in lots of sugar. But I think if you're just adding greens, there's nothing wrong with that. I think you'll only ever benefit from that. But yeah, I think sometimes we get so caught up in a craze and doing a craze that we miss the point of eating healthy throughout our actual lifestyle consistently.
Yeah.
So that was a really big rant.
No, I totally agree. I think if it makes you feel good, do it. I don't think it's doing any harm. I don't think anyone drinking juice every morning is going to do them any harm. So take it for a spin, see how you feel.
Yeah, I agree. And there's some great celery juice memes out there now. Great celery juice memes. Like if there's one thing he's provided us all, it's with some great celery juice memes.
Absolutely.
And go the celery farmers. They might bloody love him.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so this is a funny one. And I remember when I first initially read it. So the question is, how many calories a day do you eat? And what's the macronutrient breakdown? And when I first read this, I was like, fuck, do I know?
Yep.
No clue. I have no clue. And I have never, ever counted calories. And I've jumped on some weird diet bandwagons in my life, but I have never, ever jumped on board with counting calories. Sounds like a lot of work to me. But for the purposes of this question, I actually did pop stuff into MyFitnessPal for one day, just as I don't know, let's actually see what that looks like.
As a shits and gigs. Yeah.
just for shits and gigs. And it's really funny. It actually astounded me because you know how often when you hear people talking about diets and they 1,200 calories seems to be, you know, the thing that people are always saying, you know, I'm doing 1,200 calories, and that seems to be this normal thing that you always hear in the diet lounge. So I'm plugging mine in. I'm like 1,200 calories first meal of the day, done.
Yeah, breakfast.
Breakfast, 1,200 calories.
No, my first breakfast, not even my second breakfast.
I like to be an overachiever.
Yeah.
But seriously, I plugged in my stuff for the day, and it worked out to be about 1,800 calories for the day, and that was a probably fairly standard day. Like, hadn't done a lot of exercise, so probably hadn't eaten a huge amount of food, but also hadn't done nothing and wasn't really very hungry. So for me, that was sort of like a really interesting ballpark. It means nothing to me. I wouldn't continue to measure that, but just as a let's see what that meant. That's sort of what mine came out at. Interestingly, mine was 65% fat, 20% protein, and 15% carbs.
That's what I was going to ask you next. Yeah.
Massive fat monster, which is really interesting because that feels really good for me. I do know that if I've had a big session at the gym, I'll have more carbs than that. But generally, I eat a lot more fat, you know, moderate amount of protein and lower carbohydrate. And that's not through any measurement of anything. It's just that kind of feels good for me. There are days, and I find especially around my period, where I just think, give me all of the carbs. I just want to eat whole sweet potatoes every single day, and give me all of the potatoes, and give me all of the starchy carbs. But for the most part, I think I feel better with higher fat. But do you have any idea what yours would come out at?
Oh God. Well, I'd hate to know. I know I wouldn't have any clue. I'll give it a whirl after we finish the Facebook Live, and I'll see what my fitness. Oh, whoa! You're upside down.
Whoa, man down. Yeah.
You're feeling so overwhelmed.
In my fitness pal. Do you reckon, off the top of your head, though, what do you reckon your macro breakdown would look like? Because I feel like for you it would be
so I would be very different to Shan. With my bowel problems, I can't do lots of fat. Too much fat is just too much for everyone in terms of...
Just straight in the toilet. It's a good waste of coconut oil.
Yes, yeah. Because I need to make sure that with my bowel that I'm bulking up my food so that it actually has time and slows down that movement through my intestines. Fat is like a little slip. It adds to the slippery side. It's like the detergent that you throw.
Massive lubricant.
It's like the detergent that you throw on your slide before you're about to slide down there. And you know, if there's not a lot of detergent on there, you're not moving. And you know, if you went a little bit too overboard with the detergent, you're like going to hit the bloody house at the end of the slide. Well, that's me with fat. I gotta be in that real fine line of just enough detergent, but not too much. So with healthy fats, I do have them in every single meal. But I know, like the other day, I was getting really into this green smoothie that I was making. I went a little bit overboard with the avocado. And because it's a smoothie, it's very fibrous and it's a liquid, it's quite a fast moving thing through your intestines. So I try and be really smart about what I put in my smoothies. And I went to the toilet within like 20 minutes of having it. And it's like, see you later, $6 avocado. Like, did my body even pick any of that up? I don't know. So I've actually got to be I don't macro count, but I very much am very smart about what I'm putting on my plate as to how I feel like my body's going to respond to what I'm eating, and really purely just for the sake of absorbing nutrients. Do you know what I mean? I do it.
Shitting yourself.
Yeah, I just don't need to be shitting myself and nutrient deficient all the time. It's not good for anyone. It's not good for Tom, not good for me.
It's a waste of good food too.
Yeah, look, if we're growing the food, you know, I just don't need that hard work just going down the drain, literally. You know, talk about just watching your hard work go down the drain. Watching. Oh, I don't have one of those like clear poop tube things like they do at the colonic places at home. Although I should get one.
Wouldn't that be cool? Just watching your shit go by. Hey.
when people come over and people usually have fish tanks and things, and I've just got that. Just keep you up to date with my bowel movements.
Yours runs all the way through the kitchen. Yours runs all the way through the kitchen, though. It's from the toilet through the kitchen round the lounge room.
The whole house. I've got a little digestive tract through the house to just watch out with what's going on. Like this, my stomach's in the bathroom. I'd start from like my esophagus all the way down. Oh my God. This is why I have no friends. It's so embarrassing. I'm going red. I'm just beside myself. My body's like, why are we talking about my bowel movements to all these people? Oh, it's on Facebook.
Standard.
Shan's thinking about putting these on YouTube. Oh my God.
YouTube is so ready. YouTube is so ready for this.
People on YouTube are so nasty as well. This is just going to get out of control. So in terms of fats, a little bit at every meal, usually olive oils, some nuts. I don't eat lots and lots of nuts, but I tend to make them into meals or bliss balls and things. And then, breakfast I love, egg, like I love the fat from eggs and avocados. And so, I definitely get my daily dose of fats in. I try to actually have quite a lot of fat because I think everyone will always feel good if you're eating some healthy fats. And I definitely think it's really helped with my hormones. But I just make sure I don't overdo it. So where Shan probably sits at fats is probably where I probably sit a little bit more on carbohydrates, and that would be a lot of green vegetables. Well, it'd be a lot of vegetables just in general would be my carbohydrate makeup. And then I tend to have a lot of potato. Potato's a really good starchy carb that kind of binds it all together more so than pumpkin or anything. So I have lots of potato, sweet potato, normal potatoes, and then lots of veggies, and then protein. So just good quality proteins. And, I will probably get to one of these questions eventually about meat and how people have asked us about, eating meat at every meal. And Shan and I don't really eat meat at every meal. We might eat eggs for breakfast, but that's not meat as per se. And it's, it's a couple eggs. We're not eating 6 eggs a morning. It might be like 1 egg or 2 egg, or it might be turned into an omelette or whatever. Or it'll be collagen in a smoothie or some liver in a smoothie or something. But I actually have a really decent portion of meat. I tend to aim for, a really sensible size of meat, kind of like a medicinal portion of meat. And we don't sit down to like a burger with a beef patty in there and nothing else. We always try to predominantly base our plates on vegetables. So I suppose if you looked at our macros, if you put it in relative to our plates and what our plates look like, really half our plates like vegetables, and then a side of it's meat and fats. And fats are really dense. That's why they would pop up so high on Shan's calorie intake, because they high calorie. But I have actually noticed, I was saying to Tom the other day, because I've been making so many recipes, I've been eating like all the food. And I've definitely noticed my body's like swelled up, and I don't even think it's like weight gain, but I feel like it's like water retention, where it's
I'm
just like, I'm not fat, I'm just really big boned. And I've just had a little bit too much fat.
Fluid right now. Just really swollen.
I think it's all the salt. I think it's just all the salt that I've eaten that I'm just holding on to all this water. But I walked out the other day to Tom and I was like, I'm feeling very large lately. But it's funny though. Like I definitely feel like even when I probably eat more fat, I feel like I probably feel bigger. Whereas if I eat more carbs, I don't. Whereas it's quite opposite for a lot of people, and I know it's definitely opposite for you as well, Shan. So it's just funny, isn't it, how our bodies respond to things. But calories, I used to count calories when I did my nutrition course, because it was just calorie everything, and you just needed to do calories, and calories was life for nutrition. And I actually found it really overwhelming, and I actually found that it created a really unhealthy relationship with me and food when I actually did my nutrition course. And it took me years to get myself out of that relationship of calorie counting and macro counting. And it actually affected me so much that I would really kind of plan out all my meals and stuff, and I couldn't just kind of, at a spur of a moment, if I was hungry, eat something that I'd made, even though it was all real food, which is just a terrible mindset and terrible relationship to have with food. I definitely don't do it now, and I haven't done it in a really long time. But I'll be interested to see when I put it through. And I also actually find if I undereat with calories, it makes me gain weight, because I think my body can be very much on that stress side and sensitive side. If I'm starving it, it's like, oh, bitch, no way, this isn't happening. We're going to store all the weight because you're not playing these little games with us with all the hormone problems that we've had and everything.
And you know what? I think I certainly don't recommend anybody count calories. I think that's a very unhealthy way to look at food.
Obsessive.
But you know what I think is actually very, very interesting? I think a lot of people, if they actually tracked their calories just for a couple of days, they would actually see how much they're under eating more than overeating. Like, I think a lot of people would be down at that 1,200 calorie situation, which, in my opinion, that is not enough food. Like,
no.
And not even not enough food. That is not enough nutrients. Like,
no.
And particularly because a lot of the time it's coming from empty, shitty, processed food. There's not enough veggies in there. There's not enough good quality fats. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, I don't care about calories, but I think eating enough food is super important, and I think it's not something to be scared of. I haven't become morbidly obese yet, and I'm pushing 2,000 calories a day. Doing my best.
Yeah, you do you. Shan's doing double. Exactly. Everyone else.
I'm in a bulking
and also
phase.
just on the calorie thing as well, I think a bad thing with tracking calories also can be that you start to plan your meals around, say, if you're going to eat with friends later, you try and store calories for then. And I think you kind of play around with your body more than you realize by starving it for like breakfast and lunch and then binging on calories at nighttime and stuff. I think it actually can be quite detrimental to our health when we try and control our hunger when we actually naturally are hungry.
Yeah, look, I think just creating a balanced plate with real food is going to matter way more than calories, way more than any macros. Just work out what feels good for you. Fill your plate with veggies, have a decent portion of protein on there, have some healthy fats, have some carbohydrates, and work out what those portions look like. But that's what the plate should look like.
Yeah.
All those things should be on there. And then you just vary that depending on how it makes you feel. And eat until you're not hungry anymore. And then just, like, it's really not that hard.
Yeah, and I think it's quite hard because we've got into that mindset of, I think, always having like a sweet thing after a savoury thing. And I have noticed that starting to really come through with kids where they have food and then they have a sweet after a savoury, and it creates those behavioural changes around food. And I think it's a really important, like Shan just said, then eat, and then once you stop, and don't be thinking, once I finish this, I'll move on to something sweet. Eat as much savoury as you can, because that's ideally, veggies and things are going to give you. So if you've got that room to eat something sweet at the end, eat some more vegetables. And if you don't feel like eating more vegetables, you don't need to still be eating.
Yeah.
I think,
How do you get your veggies in at breakfast time?
How do we get our veggies in at breakfast time? Well, Shan and I do a lot of this stuff in our workshops. We try to grate veggies. If you're going to be, it depends what kind of person you are. If you're someone who likes to have granolas or oats or things for breakfast, we believe in grating veggies into those when you're making them up, whether it's some zucchini into your oats or carrot's really naturally sweet, or if you wanted to put some zucchini or cauliflower into your smoothies, or we tend to get a lot of veggies into our smoothies. Our smoothies would be predominantly veggies. And if you come to our workshops, you try them and you think, oh my God, this is going to taste terrible. It's got like 2 cups of vegetables and a quarter of a cup of fruit. And they taste amazing because fruit's really overpowering and sweet. So in our smoothies, we'll get celery, we'll get cucumber, we'll get spinach, we can get steamed and cooled and frozen cauliflower, we can get zucchinis, avocados. You can get a lot of veggies in at breakfast time through those sorts of things. Or things like frittatas, where it gets to the end of the week and you pull out your veggies and everything kind of flops to the side, put it all in your food processor or put it all in a grating blade or shred it all up and mix it through some eggs and bake it and have that frittata for breakfast or snacks throughout the week with some avocado. Bless you.
Thank you.
Someone's thinking of you. It's not me.
Got really bad allergies right
now. So I think, frittatas are a great option, or little egg cups. I think that smoothies are a really great way to get some more nutrients in, especially in summertime, and really easy to prep the week ahead as well. And a really good way to also use up a lot of the veggies that are in your crisper that are looking a little bit sad, chop them all up, freeze them. And then I think, if you're making granolas or oats or things, it's a really great opportunity to just grate in some veggies. You'd think it'll taste, I think we've got a stigma around vegetables. Food is just food. Eat real food at breakfast time. And real food like veggies don't actually taste bad when you're adding them into food, like other ingredients. You're not sitting down to a bowl of steamed zucchini for breakfast. That's not what we're suggesting. I don't want to do that.
That's disgusting.
And making that's feral. Don't even do that. Or making
I'd
omelets
need like a
with
whole
ingredients.
thing of butter on top of that.
Yeah, salt, all the salt. I'd need to dip the
salt
zucchini
and
in
all
like
the
a little
butter.
bowl of salt, like roll it in butter, then salt, and then slide it down. But yeah, and like omelets, another great way to get some veggies in there as well.
Yeah, and I think just like you were saying about making frittatas and stuff, with anything that looks sad, also anything that looks sad in the fridge, chop it up and roast it. So you've got all these roast veggies, chuck them into a fry pan, crack a few eggs on top, make a roast veggie, scrambled eggs. But also there's no such thing as breakfast food. There's just food. Have salad for breakfast. If you've got leftover
I
salad
love salad.
Cook a couple of eggs, put it on top of your salad, call it done. Like there's no reason why you can't just have roast veggies and eggs for breakfast, or salad for breakfast, or whatever it is. It really doesn't have to be that hard.
If we've had steamed broccoli and sausages the night before, I'll just slice all that up and put it in a little fry pan and heat it all up and stuff. Do you know what I mean? It's just food.
And if you're cooking veggies the night before as well, just cook extra so that you can chuck in your lunch for the next day, or have some for breakfast the next morning. Like it really doesn't take much more effort to cook, chop up a bit of extra broccoli and some extra carrots and some extra sweet potato. Just chop it all up.
Or if you're putting avocado on toast, put some other stuff in with your avocado. Shan and I always do loaded guacs where you're having more nutrients than just avocado, because avocados are like $6 each. Add in some zucchini and spinach, blend it all up and use that. It's not going to taste any different.
It's already green.
Yeah.
This is a quick one, so I'll just do this one because it's not really for me because you didn't breastfeed my child. So I'll just do it quickly. How long did you breastfeed?
Well, not that you know.
Getting awkward. How long did you breastfeed Grace for, and can you recommend a formula if breastfeeding isn't an option? I fed her until she was 15 months old, and no, I can't recommend a formula. I have nothing against baby formula. Feed the baby. I don't really care how you do that. Just feed the baby. That's the most important thing. I never gave Grace formula. I had a massive oversupply of milk, which sounds like a great thing, but not really when they're your own boobs and they're exploding. So G never had formula, but I think there is some pretty good ones at the moment. I know a few people who use a brand called Bellamy's, which is an organic brand. You can get it at health food
I've
stores.
heard good things about them.
I think you can even get it at like Coles and Woolies now too.
Yeah, I think pharmacies have it as well.
Yep. So that's the only information I have to offer on that. I don't really know. The end.
And I think they do a goat's milk one as well, that Bellamy one. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, that's all I got on that. What do you think of the Dirty Dozen, or should I choose everything organic?
I think, again, never let perfect get in the way of good. But I think if you can afford to buy everything organic, I think definitely buy everything organic. I think that's a great option, because I think that's a priority when you are trying to improve your health, if you can afford it. I think if you can't, then I think there's nothing wrong with following the Dirty Dozen Clean 15. I know that there are a few things that aren't exactly the same on the Dirty Dozen Clean 15, because I think it's mostly American based, and it's a bit different here in Australia with how we grow our food. But also a lot of the things on like the Dirty Dozen list are your spinaches, leafy greens, all that sort of stuff. If you've got a little pot outside or a little patch of soil, you can pretty well grow all your spinach, all your silver beet, all those kale, everything. Honestly, you cannot kill it. We've had silver beet that's grown for like 3 years straight in the garden, and I've harvested from it for like 3 years. You can't kill it. English spinach is the same. It needs like no room to grow, and as long as you're picking from it often, it's fine. And same with herbs and things. So I think if you can kind of grow a lot of that stuff yourself, great, because things like kale and stuff can be so expensive considering what they are. And I definitely think go by those guidelines. You know, wash your fruit and veg with some lemon juice or apple cider vinegar and stuff as well if you choose to. I think I like the idea with organic because I don't have to be so concerned about cleaning everything off my vegetables, and I can let a little bit of dirt and things go on there, which are those really good soil-based bacteria, and not fret over pesticides and chemicals and herbicides and things. But I think because a lot of my issues are a liver issue, liver really struggles to break down pesticides and herbicides. So for me, organic's a real priority, and it's made a big difference to my health. But I think it's really about where you're at. And, you know, Shan, I always think that if you buy things, you know, that are Australian grown, and you're buying berries and you want to buy berries, but you're a little bit worried about the clean 15 and they're really expensive to buy organic, get the frozen ones because they haven't had to be sprayed with as much stuff because they're being frozen and not going to be sitting on the shelf or in the fridge. So obviously that's Australian grown. I don't mean something that's grown in like the sewage of China that carries hepatitis or whatever. So yeah, I definitely think that I definitely think they have a lot of truth behind the Dirty Dozen Clean 15 because think about the skins of things. You know, if there's spray being directly sprayed on leafy greens and skins of things that you're eating, it's obviously going to be more contaminated. And I think there's obviously foods that are easier to kind of lose in harvesting, like your spinaches and berries and things, which will cost the farmer more. So they obviously have to spray more and use more chemicals. So I think it's a good one to follow. I definitely think if you can start growing a few of your own little things, that's a good option. And I definitely think there's frozen stuff that's also a good option instead of a fresh when it comes to Australian grown.
Yeah, totally agree. I also think that if you can make organic a priority, that's great. In terms of the nutrient density of organic food, it's probably not actually any different to commercially grown food. It's just that it doesn't have that chemical load on it, that toxic load that's going to be in your body afterwards. But if it's a case of buying, you know, organic vegetables or no vegetables because you can't afford organic ones, that's not even a thing. Just buy conventional vegetables. Just give them a wash, move on with your life. Don't let that be the barrier between eating more vegetables. If you can make it a priority, great. If you can't, do the best you can and move on.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
Okay, what does bone broth do and what sort is your preference? And then a question on from that is, does it help with endometriosis?
Bone broth. So my preference, if I'm making it myself, I prefer to do lamb because I find it gives me the best gelatinous bone broth and it's really got that wobble to it. I like all the flavors of broth. I think chicken's a little bit more mild and tastes a bit more like chicken soup if you're just getting started and you're not really into drinking a cup of broth. I also think that making your own is always going to be a better option than buying some, but if you got to buy some, do look for organic ones. I think that's something you should prioritize as organic if you can, or at least grass fed. And what was the other bit? What does it do?
Yeah, what
does bone broth do?
Endo.
So what does bone broth do? Bone broth, like Shan and I were talking about before with collagen, it contains lots of amino acids. It also contains collagen. So it really helps to re-heal and seal your gut lining. It's really concentrated with glycine and proline, which are amino acids that really help for repair of our gut lining. They're really good for inflammation of our body, and endometriosis, a lot of the research that's coming out now is actually that it's an inflammatory disease and an inflammatory problem. So if glycine and proline really help with inflammation within your body and reducing inflammation and repairing your gut, I don't think there's any harm in ever having bone broth for endo, and I've definitely felt it's played a big role in assisting in reducing pain in my periods. So I definitely think it does, and I definitely think most anti-inflammatory things will help with endo. I think a lot of people are asking about what does healing and sealing mean. So I guess the best way that Shan and I explain it is that your gut is kind of like a fly screen / fishing net. It's got little tight junctions all around it. And when you are stressed or you're eating the wrong food or something's out of balance in your gut or you get sick, you start to get little tears and holes and gaps in your fly screen, and bits of food start to pass through that shouldn't ever be there, and they move into your bloodstream. So from your gut lining goes straight into your bloodstream. That's where you assimilate and absorb all your nutrients. And so things start to pass through to your bloodstream that shouldn't, like whole bits of gluten, kale, dairy, whatever, and it starts to give a really toxic reaction. There's a lot of inflammation there. Your body sends all the inflammatory signals down there to kind of try and repair and rebuild that situation because it's become toxic. And then you start to have that bloating reaction to a lot of foods that you're eating that set it off that time. And so what you try to do is, and that's that leaky gut thing. So what you're trying to do is basically repair that fishnet, repair those tight junctions. And what they actually say is that gluten contains zonulin, which actually starts to remove the tight junctions and affect them. So that's why gluten became one of those things where it affects, you know, leaky gut, or it's something that you cut out when you've got microbiome problems or gut problems. So basically, bone broth's really well known, and those amino acids are really well known for healing and sealing that gut lining. So that's where that kind of saying comes from. That's why I probably say it a lot, and why Shan probably says it a lot.
Yeah, and so I guess for anybody who doesn't know what bone broth is just the way that our great-grandparents would have made stock. It's not a new food. It's a very, very old food. It's a process of getting bones, preferably organic ones, and then cooking them over a low and slow heat to help draw all the minerals out of the bones, all that gelatin, all those amino acids, the magnesium, the calcium, all that sort of jazz, and then you drink it. Or you would use it any way that you would use a stock. So making risotto, you could use it like that. You can just drink it like a cup of broth. You can cook rice in it. You can saute veggies in it. You can make soup with it. It's basically stock, but it's just properly prepared stock.
Yeah.
The most nutrient out of it. And like Soph said, it's great for gut stuff, but it's also great for joints. It's great for arthritis. It's great for our skin. It's great for our hair. It's great for our nails, because collagen is the building blocks for all those sorts of things. So if you're somebody who suffers from joint pain or old injuries, you do a lot of exercise and you just need that extra help for muscle repair, it's one of those things that's always going to be really helpful for that.
Yep. Where are we at?
Last question.
Last one. Yep.
Yep. If my okay, so it's around gut health and anxiety. So I don't really know what the question was, but it was kind of around, if my gut's unhealthy, can it make my anxiety worse?
Yeah. Well, you know what I find so funny, and Tom and I are actually talking about this the other day, because a friend of mine was really sick after getting sick overseas, and then they were having lots of gut problems, and we were talking about how it affects your mood and you get really irritable. And we were actually talking about the other day that when my gut was really bad, or I had lots of flare-ups, or I had the operation last year with endometriosis and I ended up being really sick, how irritated I was all the time. You know, you've got a really short, I suppose you've got a really short patience with everything. You get angry really quickly. You're really restless. You're tired. You're moody, and you feel anxious because everything's out of whack. You don't feel. I guess the best way I kind of feel is I don't feel grounded. I feel really flighty, airy-fairy. I feel like everything's not digesting well. I've got pains. I think whenever you're in pain, you're always going to feel not okay, no matter whether it's pain in your hands or your legs or your tummy or wherever, or migraines or anything. I think you'll always feel not yourself and not okay. But yeah, I definitely have felt that whenever my tummy flares up, or I'll actually find that I'm starting to feel anxious over something, and then I'll realize that something's actually wrong with my tummy sometimes. Now I'll notice the one before the other sometimes, which is funny. But yeah, I definitely do feel that. And I also feel like it can actually cause anxiety around other things. Like when my tummy was really bad, I started to have anxiety about eating out or eating food at other people's places and stuff, because I knew that if I'd get sick, how much of a bad time I'd have, and then I'd have to go home, and then how bad I'd feel for the next few days, and I'd start to get anxiety over that. But the gut, your gut is so connected to your brain. It's like your second brain, and I think it's really, really important to treat it like that. And I think, things like even the serotonin release can be a really good mood enhancer, but if your body's all out and your gut's all out, the serotonin can actually affect if you start to have diarrhea. If you're nervous, you can start to have diarrhea, and that can be affected by the serotonin. And so I think it's quite an intricate setup, but I think it's very obvious that they are connected. And I think it's very obvious that your gut being out of balance with all that bad bacteria will affect your mood and your emotions. You hold about 90% of your mood enhancers, like cells in your gut, your serotonin and everything. So if your gut's really unstable, it's not an optimal environment for those cells to be functioning. So I think you're always going to feel out of whack when everything's not functioning how it should be.
Yeah, 100%. So serotonin is the neurotransmitter that floats around in our brain and makes us feel calm and stops us from feeling anxious and
Yeah.
makes us happy. So like Soph was saying, over 70% of the serotonin in our body is actually made by the cells in our gut. So if our gut isn't healthy, we don't have the right bacteria in there doing that job of making all that serotonin. We can't produce the serotonin to get up here to make us feel calm, tell us to calm the fuck down, don't be anxious, don't be stressed, you're all okay. So, you know, it's completely realistic to think that if your guts are out of whack, you're going to feel anxious. And I think anybody who, you know, generally eats well would notice that you go away for the weekend or you've got a big weekend of parties or something like that. You generally eat well all the time. You go out and you have lots of processed food, you drink lots of booze, all that sort of stuff. After that weekend, you will notice, firstly, you feel depressed because alcohol is a depressant. But secondly, you've just trashed your guts. So your body's ability to produce that serotonin and make you feel happy and help to regulate your moods is just not happening optimally. We all feel agitated. We feel shitty. We're moody. We're short-tempered. All those things.
Emotional.
Absolutely. And it's not just because you're tired. It's actually because you've
No.
just trashed shit out of your guts and you're not actually producing all of those great neurotransmitters that your body needs to help to level out those moods. So, yes, our gut is very, very strongly related to our moods.
Yeah, definitely. All
I
right.
reckon that's it for the day. That's us. Wrap it up.
I agree.
All right.
So what are we going to be talking about next week? So you have an idea. What have we got?
Lots.
Anything. We've got about 30 million questions. It'll be a lot of not similar sort of stuff, but all on the health topics.
Yeah, definitely. We've got plenty to come up next week. So same bat time, same bat channel.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Right.
See ya.
Bye.